Do you solemnly swear to preserve, protect, and uphold the Constitution of the United States of America?
Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not. What do you think, huh?
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing. Anyway, the point I want to make is Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys. And and back in those days, to show how things have changed, I learned a lot. And I learned that you stack spaghetti sauce at a store in a supermarket. You control the guy or the woman who brings out the carts on a forklift. And by the way, it's cost a lot of money. It cost about $740 billion over 10 years.
Okay. Now.
What happened?
Do you solemnly swear to preserve, protect, and uphold the Constitution of the United States of America?
I do.
This is a tale the rats and snakes have feared for a long, long time. There's 747 sits, then it makes an uphill climb. It looks like it no time. The first mate and a skipper too will be put to their deaths. We'll make the others comfortable with an epic mass arrest. Electric chairs for every guest. Ouch. No phones, no bribes, no more cigars, not a single hung jury. Trump promised us he'd do so. Now Hillary's in Camp D on Guantanamo Bay TV. So join us here, it's big, my friend, you're sure to get a smile. So many slimy rats and snakes here on Castro's Isle.
Castro's Isle? Okay, you idiots, get in here.
Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. President Trump has once again made history by being the first U.S. president to get impeached twice. Whoa, double impeachment. What does it mean? Well, we'll attempt to answer that question on today's episode. Impeachment is perhaps the most devastating fallout for Trump in the aftermath of the storming of the Capitol building a week and a half ago. Actually, never mind. The permanent ban from Twitter is probably the most devastating fallout for Trump. What is Trump going to do when he wakes up at 4 a.m. now? Prank call Biden? No wonder he's so sleepy. Anyway, back to impeachment. First, a refresher in case you've forgotten Trump's previous impeachment trial a year ago. According to the Constitution, the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Unlike Trump's first impeachment, this time the House did not launch an impeachment inquiry before bringing the formal article of impeachment. Just one day after the Capitol riot on January 6th, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi said that the House would impeach Trump unless the cabinet stripped him of his powers. That would involve Vice President Mike Pence and members of the cabinet invoking the 25th Amendment of the Constitution to remove President Trump from office. In fact, the House approved a resolution urging Pence to use the 25th Amendment on Tuesday. That's despite the fact that Pence had already sent a letter to Pelosi saying that he would not do that. Pence said that he believed using the 25th Amendment that way would be unconstitutional. That's because the amendment is designed to address what happens when a president is incapacitated or disabled, not to remove him from office for other reasons. Pence pointed out that Pelosi had said the same thing a few months ago when introducing legislation to create a 25th Amendment commission. Pence also urged Congress to avoid actions that would further divide and inflame the passions of the moment. The House clearly took his words to heart, as they voted to impeach Trump with only a week left to his presidency. The final vote in the House was 232 to 197. 10 Republicans voted with all of the Democrats, which means this was technically a bipartisan impeachment. What happens next? The Senate has to hold an impeachment trial. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called on Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to let the trial start immediately. And there were reports that McConnell privately backs the impeachment effort. But McConnell refused to reconvene the Senate in an emergency session, which means that they won't come back until January 19th. In a statement, McConnell said there wouldn't be enough time to hold a fair or serious trial before Biden is sworn in. So now, Trump's second impeachment trial will happen after Biden is president, which means that Trump could be the first president to be removed from office after he's already been removed from office.
Congress and the House and Senate are in recess, so I guess it's time to celebrate. The Patriots' voices have been heard. America first. Now that's some real news, don't you think? When's the last time you heard real news?
Listen to you, want you to be with me.
Is China run by a transnational criminal organization? Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. In China today, there are concentration camps. Minorities are used for slave labor after getting forcibly sterilized. People of faith get their organs harvested in state-run hospitals. And yet, Wall Street elite keep pushing investment in the same government. Here's a recent article from JP Chase, focused on opportunities. Why invest in Chinese government bonds now? And human rights concerns didn't stop a major EU-China investment agreement. The Chinese Communist Party has repeatedly broken international promises, like its agreement with the World Trade Organization, and its agreement with the UK that Hong Kong would get to keep its freedoms. The problem is, governments and countries around the world treat the Chinese Communist Party like a legitimate government. But that may change. There's an effort going on right now to label the Chinese Communist Party a transnational criminal organization. For more on that, I spoke with Hong Kong businessman and political commentator Elmer Yuen about how the world can hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable for their actions. Mr. Yuen, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Of course. You initially came to the U.S. to advocate for Hong Kong before Beijing passed the national security law. What do you think of what the U.S. government has done so far to counter the Chinese Communist Party's actions in Hong Kong?
When I arrived back in middle of June, they were not really prepared. I mean, Pompeo spoke a lot about standing with Hong Kong, but that's only words. In action, they're totally unprepared. And the State Department, as you know, is not very anti-China at all. They are pro-China overall. You know, over the years, it's always been. After most of these guys retire, they look to have some business with China. China is a big business market. So anyway, nobody's quite prepared, and it's more spoken support instead of action. And I hear these words about measured response against China, against CCP.
You've proposed that the U.S. government should label the Chinese Communist Party as a transnational criminal organization. What does that mean?
Everybody say China is a big country, big nation. In fact, the nation itself, the word nation, is really a facade. In essence, it's the CCP in total control, complete control. It's really not a nation. Almost behind every government official, or even behind every business, even small business. you can see the CCP controlling behind. As you know, China has over 90 million CCP members, over 90 million. And then you have lots of young people. After kindergarten, they start joining this pioneer, the Red Scarf. So they have unlimited supply of very well-educated, the best they have, the brightest they have to join the party. So overall, the CCP is very much like the mafia organization, right? On top, you have about 50 families, very powerful families, from the Long March or from the high officials. We call them the Red second generation or third generation, and then the official second or third generation, and they have accumulated huge amount of wealth. As you can see, in all the major cities, the most expensive apartments or properties bought up by them, the prime real estate. They have been using companies, shelf company, investing in all kinds of Fortune 500 companies. You don't know them because they use company name, right? So they are really controlling this company behind the scene and also working with them. All right, China is working with all these big corporations on the service. This, as you can see, but the control behind the back, the equity control, is something people don't talk about. So this is the organization: 50 families, 90 million members, which are like gangsters in the mafia, and then they have 1.3 trillion people to exploit. Very much like, you remember the New York movies. You have the mafia families, and then you have the gangsters, and then you have the people on the street that they go and collect protection money. Very much, that's the system. It works. So the word nation, it's really, we always consider them as nation, as a legal nation. So we deal with them with diplomacy and then make contracts with them. And then the British wrote this Sino-British Joint Declaration about Hong Kong, treating them like a nation. But as you know, criminals have no understanding of law, right? The minute they can break, they will break. As long as they are making money, they let it go on. And as long as they don't make any money, they will break their contract, any contract. So Hong Kong is a typical example. They find that Hong Kong people wants too much freedom, rule of law, and democracy. So they decided to take over Hong Kong, and then forget about the Joint Declaration, British-Chinese Declaration. So they've decided to do that, and suddenly Hong Kong become part of China. So like Donald Trump said, it's no longer one country, two system. It's become one country, one system. So what happened to me? I've really not been involved with politics. I realized, but I know all about China because I deal with every level of them. I live in China 20 years, I live in US 20 years, and Hong Kong 20 years. Right? So I know all these countries quite well. I know what all the crimes they've committed in the last 71 years, where the People's Republic of China, they named the country, right? Which is really not, they don't respect it. There's no people. You never see the people. It's not a republic, right? And it's really not Chinese culture. What they are exercising is very much like the Soviet, even more closer to the fascist behavior. Chinese are not fascism, even though we have emperors, but the emperor normally leave the people alone. So, but anyway, I've decided to come to expose their crimes. At least 70 million people died of abnormal death since 1949, right? From starvation, from Cultural Revolution, people committing suicide, and all kinds of political struggle. And every family has suffered from the political persecution. So I've decided to come to the States to lobby your Congress about the Chinese being a criminal organization. In the beginning, I was thinking about using the RICO law. I'm sure you know about the RICO law against the gangster, which means every party member is in fact a criminal if you belong to this criminal organization. Then we discovered there's even a better law called the transnational criminal organization. They use that law against the South American drug cartels, right? And also use it against the 𝚙𝚃𝚘. And of course, China is a much bigger scale of a criminal organization. So that suits very well. So we have Congressman Scott Perry. He's combining 3 different laws. One is the transnational criminal organization. One is the RICO. And also, as you know, there was old McCarthy law, the Communist Control Act. So he's combining all 3, and he is trying to legislate and designate the CCP as a TCO, and also a RICO violation of the RICO and the Communist Act. And these laws are already in place. So we don't need to go through legislation. It's only a matter of designation.
Well, so practically speaking, what would it mean for the international community and businesses if the CCP were labeled a criminal organization?
If you're a businessman, would you sign a contract with a criminal organization? Would you sign a contract with a mafia organization? It's exactly that. And I wouldn't even shake hands, right? If you normally in U.S. A legitimate company, you normally have your lawyer to check the other side to see how good it is. The minute you discover it's a criminal organization, no executive in their right mind would sign a contract or even negotiate. So suddenly you have them isolated. You force them, takes time, right? You force them to give up this CCP and become a normal country. This is in long term. This is what I expect. But step number 1, you must label them. Because most people don't know. They think, oh, I'm going to China. It's a huge market. 1.4 billion people can make a lot of money. That's everybody. Same thing with the Ivy League. All the professors, oh, Chinese, great culture. They are inviting me there, pay for my tickets and hotel, everything. And then, oh, I must go. There's a lot to study. And I can write paper and write books. This is what happened to the corporatists, to Hollywood. Wow, how can I let go of 1.4 billion movie tickets, for a good movie? So all NBA, everybody is really, they thought about this huge market and forgot who they are dealing with. They're not dealing with the people. They're dealing with the Communist Party. That is the problem. So I want to label them so people are aware of who they are dealing with. Criminals, they're dealing with criminals. It's very, very important, and you cannot expect them to keep their promise. And in the end, they would do anything because criminals obviously have no sense of law. They would do anything for their own good. And communism means they want to take over all the private ownership, global, not only China, global. That's what One Belt, One Road. That's why they're in US. They have infiltrated almost everything, including your White House, your State Department, and your presidency.
So you're basically saying that the U.S. should sanction the entire Chinese Communist Party. But the CCP is already fighting U.S. sanctions by saying that if international companies follow U.S. sanctions, they're going to get in trouble in China. So does that mean U.S. sanctions wouldn't work?
You have to decouple with them and forget about the near-term profit, honestly. Because if you still want to do business with them, that the trouble will never end. Right now, of course, if you look at Wall Street and Silicon Valley and then Hollywood and NBA, right, and also the Ivy Leagues, they love to do business with China, right? Because China treats them well. They know how to take care of them, so they don't want to cut off. But in reality, we know we've been dealing with them from Hong Kong. We know how they behave. They always win. In the end, they always win. So I believe that you have to decouple with them, and not only US, the whole world have to isolate them and make sure they change back to a normal nation. And then you can deal with them. China business will be 5 times better if you are dealing with a normal nation. Right now, they're stealing your technology, they're stealing everything, and they have very, very cheap labor, cheap land, and cheap executive. So they can undercut the price, and basically you can't compete with them. They have the mass, they have their domestic market to have the scale, economy of scale. So in a way, you cannot compete with them fairly unless they become a private enterprises.
So you're arguing that it is in the economic interest of the international community, Hollywood, Wall Street, to actually view the Chinese Communist Party as a criminal organization, that is, in the long run, better for them?
In the long run. But I think people should also try to understand the evilness of this whole regime, of this party. You know, what's happening in Xinjiang is more serious than what the Nazis have done to the Jews. More serious in Xinjiang. And people can also compare Hong Kong now with Hong Kong before. Everybody loves Hong Kong. Whoever's been to Hong Kong, they love Hong Kong. And now suddenly you can talk to any Hong Kong people coming out of Hong Kong, and they'll tell you it's disaster. It's basically, you know, it's like taken over by the fascists, and that they are arresting people, and they don't go by the law. They gave them whatever sentence they want, and no, they don't care about the charges. Suddenly, our whole legal system is out of the window.
Who switched up the lyrics?
Well, Nancy Pelosi kind of ripped them up. Wilson! Wilson! Secretary Clinton, what difference at this point does it make? That's funny. Hey, spirit cooker. Marina, get me a cerveza, man. Yeah, make mine coronavirus with a squeeze of Lyme's disease. Hola, Comey. Is that a snake in your plane? Or are you just happy to see me? Look, he's James Clapper. It's pretty tough to clap with those chains on. Hey, James, that's Brennan, man. Oh, that was Clapper. A mouse. It's okay. That snake's got it. Oh, that's gonna leave a mark. Psst. Hey, Betty Sotoro. I heard you got these standards out, just like Chifty Chiff. Look, it's Justin Trudeau. Nah, that's a guy. Orange is the new blackface.
Actually, I heard they were all hung well.
Wait,